Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, November 9th, 2020, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Well, it's Monday. That means it's weekly news and announcement day. We're doing a wrap up on GameHole Con, which just happened over the weekend. That's a good thing. Had a lot of fun. Ran a couple of games. Of course, did the show as seminars for the 4 days and played in a handful of games too. A lot of fun. I see Artanis is in the chat. He played in a couple of my games, and I know played in several others, so I imagine she had a good time. It's good to virtually get out of the house every now and then. Go do some stuff. Do some virtual stuff. I've talked a lot over the weeks since Greyhawk Con about the sandbox game I ran based on the Giant series of adventures. I was calling it Insteading with the Giants, and I ran 5 events. One event at Greyhawk Con, one session, first edition AD&D. A couple of them at Autumn Revel, and a couple of them over this last weekend at GameHole Con, and I think it went really well. I was happy with the turnout, and I was happy with the way people responded to the adventures and the way they dug in. Overall, fantastic success. These were seasoned gamers, even if a couple of them weren't as familiar with first edition rules as some others. I think that's part of what we like about first edition is those of us who do like it is that it looks complicated if you just open the books and look at them, but really it's one of the simplest versions of D&D that there is. It's pretty cut and dry, and if you've played any kind of Dungeons and Dragons from any edition, this is might be the simplest one. If you've played any of those, you could jump into this. If you played Pathfinder, of course, you could jump into this. If you played most role-playing games, there might be some which dice do you roll differences at which time, but most of the nomenclature you would have down, and you can jump right into it. So everybody was quite capable. Everybody did a really, really fine job, and with some time left on the clock, as they say, they managed to do in the big bads that were at the steading and clear it out, which was the bottom line for what the overall mission was eventually. Like I say, this was a sandbox. It was it had the ability for people to play in the earlier ones and then come join this one and use the same character they were using before. And I think people liked that. I know Sarah played in 4 of the 5 and was playing a magic user thief the whole time. That became fairly legendary for frying things with her wand of lightning. And yeah, overall it was really a lot of fun. Hey, I should do the hey, George is here. George played a little bit too, a couple of sessions. Sunday went off at the steady. Yes, I think Sarah. I would like to see Sarah type something in while she's here. Maybe she could give you her perspective on it. Our neighborhood basset hound is out and about chasing squirrels up a tree, so if you can hear a bit of howling and whatnot in the background, that is what you're getting. Hey, by the way, I want to take a minute to to say the giveaway last week was undefined. Obviously, it would have been pointless to give someone a Virtual GameHole Con badge today, since that ended yesterday. But I've got a few different things that I think would be pleasing that I'm going to give the person that won the chance to choose from. There's a DVD, there's a dice thing, there's a couple things going on. So we'll see what he says. He's actually somebody who won something before, pretty early on, I think. He got a badge. Sorry, he got a Virtual GameHole Con badge. I should say that to be clear that I'm not talking about the patches, which a number of people won. Lee plays Smith and Martin. Yeah, so he has won a one. It's a giveaway. You don't really win a giveaway. It's just a nice thing. It's a thank you for being part of the community that we do each week. And all you need to do is follow the show and chime in on the stream chat at some point when there's a live show going. And the only reason we even ask you to do that much is because that helps us separate the real people from the bots that tend to pile into these Twitch channels all the time. I found an article discussing the various different bots that were coming through. There's a whole article on these Twitch bots. You should ban these Twitch bots from your channel. And they give you a whole list. They show you the command to write. Gift to Gabby. Hey, welcome. Working on a 5e adventure. Nice. Excellent. You're going to DM. Excellent. You'll have a lot of fun. You will definitely have a lot of fun. I guarantee it. I was just looking to find. Give me just 1 second here while I try to pull up the list for the players in the games. Oh, I know where they are. They're right over by here. There it is. Open that up. Insteading PCs, right? Yeah, I've got a list going back all the way to GreyhawkCon. But Sarah, Matt, Mark, George, Sarah and George, who are both here. Brian and Michael played on Saturday. Thank you so much. And we had a no-show on Sunday. Glenn did not show, and that left randomly one of the 6 PCs not in the mix. They soldiered on and did just fine. Managed without it, but on Sunday, Sarah and Mark returned, and they were joined by Eric, Mark M., and David, who all did a fine job strategizing to make the final assault on the steading. Their enemies' numbers were severely depleted, but it was, of course, the strongest that had been surviving the earlier adventures. And, of course, they had some help from outside. So it wasn't just your typical mix of giants and ogres and cave bears like they ran into. That was mostly what they were dealing with. So, this is one of those adventures that's designed to be a bit of a slugfest, as it were. There's a lot of opportunities for combat. If you can avoid some of them, more power to you, but these are tough, tough pre-gen characters, even for this scenario, which was piled high with enemies. But as long as you kept them in front of you and used good tactics during combat, strategized a bit on your way in and on your approach, it was certainly quite possible to overcome. Now, it took multiple assaults and multiple return trips to civilization to replenish supplies was part of it, but also to heal up and to power up, so to speak, wand charges and a few other things like that. So, but you know, there's a cost with that. So if they assaulted and then left, it's 6 days back to civilization. So it's going to be almost 2 weeks before you make another assault. That's a lot of time for your enemies to reinforce their own defenses, and that proved true a number of times in increased patrols around the steading, in bulking up their defenses at their gates and doors, and being on higher alert. They were caught flat-footed, as it were, early on with the meagerest of ogre guards in the earliest adventures, and those gate guards and door guards were upgraded to hill giants, and eventually to hill giants with cave bears, helping them out toward the later adventures. You know, part of that is they're running out of ogres. Ogres just weren't proving to be very, very good at keeping anything out. And honestly, hill giants weren't doing all that well either. But the cave bears had an advantage in that they had multiple attacks. They also had the advantage that the ranger was not going to slice right through them every time he stepped up, because the ranger, being a high-level ranger against giant-class creatures like the ogres were going down sometimes in one hit. The hill giants in a couple, because of the added damage that was going on from the ranger, and he was a terror. And everybody who played the ranger had a real treat in that. Sir Fienst, the fighter, was as tough as they come. The multiple attacks on every other round, and just being with that flame sword, just being able to really wade into every battle, worked out very well. The cleric, who was missing on one no-show day, was it Saturday? Somebody didn't show, and so we didn't have a cleric. Was there on Sunday. Certainly excellent, helpful for all the healing that was done. Certainly a rod of smiting was a huge deal in his hands. That's right. Yeah, Matt didn't make it back. Matt, who had been with us for the Adventure Sunday at Autumn Revel, was not able to return for the Saturday adventure at GameHole Con. We hope everyone's well, everyone's fine. I tried to touch base with him, but I don't know how to get direct control or directly a hold of him directly, so I'll keep trying. I want to make sure he's all right. I'll put a bug in the convention's ear and see if there's a way of checking. I played with him in some other stuff too, but Uh, if he's on Facebook, we weren't connected through that, so that's kind of the easiest way. Um, Rest of GameHole Con got into another Dirk game, another Dirk Collins OD&D game. What a treat! Uh, Crystal Mirror Vikings. We were, or Vikings with the serial numbers filed off. No, he just calls them Vikings. They are considered. Why throw a different word at something just to pretend it's not part of the real world that you're in? They fully functioned as Vikings. So a handful of us had different cities, strongholds, city states, whatever the different sizes were, trading towns within a larger expanse of territory in the north. Um, but we all had soldiers. We formed a flotilla, went south to go a Viking, and wound up finding a plateau island of dragons that seemed to be a dragonware, a place with a plateau with multiple caves where dragons were swarming all around and breeding. And we managed to. I don't know how much I can say because this is for some people part of an ongoing, now going to be an ongoing campaign on the OK Grognard Discord server. I know Dirk is rallying up some other players to, make it a huge world with tons of players and, have multiple games and who can get together for this one? Oh, you, and you. All right. How do we get you together? And then now you can go do what you want to do. And of course, everybody is mid to high level, so everybody is a leader in a community. So there are the bigger problems, big picture problems of trade and military defense of that community and making allies with other communities. While at the same time, the individuals are also adventurers who can detach themselves from their community, from their faction, from their town or city state or whatever size community they're part of. They can detach themselves and join other adventurers and do more focused dungeon crawling or outdoor mission oriented D&D open original D&D style campaigning. So it runs the gamut. It really is nifty. I played in a couple of I played in a Jacala game, a couple of them. One with Victor Raymond, who is kind of the king of Jacala these days. He's got some projects in the work. I will definitely be talking about them on future shows. There'll be some opportunities to look them over, review them, discuss them for the sake of, what can we use as a GM in our first edition games. Empire of the Petal Throne, which is his focus, was one of the earliest, I think, 1975 offshoots, if you will, from D&D. And I say it that way because, and it wasn't just somebody saw D&D and said, "Oh, I'm going to make my own role-playing game to compete. Oh, that's making money. Let's get in that business," right? Because there were plenty of those, and some of them certainly, most of them were created by gamers and were games. They were different. Sometimes there were aspects that were the same. Sometimes they pretty closely mimicked how D&D might work, but it's early enough in the industry, the RPG industry, which really started with D&D. It's early enough in the industry that I don't think we call these things fantasy heartbreakers. They weren't D&D with the serial numbers filed off and like one new mechanic that was all the rage. So there were enough differences but enough samenesses that you could just join right in. Empire of the Petal Throne had its own setting, which Mr. Barker, the author, had written, had used for science fiction and fantasy novels that he had written for 20 years or something like that. So when he was in Minnesota and Mike Mornard went up there and was showing off D&D to the clubs up there while he was at school up there after having played with Gary in the early stages of play testing here in Lake Geneva, Barker looked at this and was like, well, this is fantastic. What a great idea. What a great game you've got going on here. Does it need a setting? Because he had a setting. He'd fleshed out languages and this whole Jacala setting. So he, of course, then talked to Gary, talked to the burgeoning TSR at that point, and got them to put together a box set that was basically his setting to be used with their own rules or with original Dungeons and Dragons or whatever version of Dungeons and Dragons you might be using, because Basic was starting to come out. We were still a year before Advanced Dungeons and Dragons would come out. There were a couple of Basic sets at that point in 75, right? There was, let's not get too far into the history, right? So we had that Jacala game going on. I had another Barsoom, but part of that family of games, because they have a Jacala society, as it were, that Victor and a few others have banded together to create a I don't know what the word would be, a consortium, maybe. Every now and then, a number of game runners, DMs, GMs will get together and put together something prior to conventions or as an ongoing campaign where, you know, if we play this week, you play in your world, well. But then when it comes to a convention, they'll all become GMs for that convention. They'll put themselves under one banner and put up multiple events that way. And then you could play this with this guy and that with that guy, and they're all part of the whole. So yeah, a lot of work going into that, and I think they were quite successful at what they did with that. And I wanted to also give a shout out to one other. Let me also say thanks to Alex for pivoting to virtual and doing this. Despite the events of the year that can make stuff difficult. Well, I can't get to the events now. Well, that's a bummer. They already shut down the events calendar, so you can't look back and see what was going on. Maybe there's a back door in here. I don't know. Shoot. I wish I had saved some different tabletop events. It's not over there. Con locations. Ugh. No, it doesn't look like I'll be able to jump into any of those to oh, maybe this will get me there. Crystal Mirror, right? And Ogre Island and the Black Crate, yeah. Jacallan Underworld. Tekamal from Barsoom to Katalo. Tower of Rudavas. Ship of the Damned. Yes, so the ongoing Andrew Scott Perry. That's who I want to also mention. Thursday, I got into a game that was presented by Warp, another one of those overarching consortium group sort of things where DMs put themselves together as under one banner. The Ship of the Damned was an ongoing, I want to say sequel, Keep on the Borderlands. So it used that as a starting point and then continued on. So you're still, you've explored the starship, and now what? Do they send you back? Do you go back and continue exploring these things? A lot of fun. First, mostly edition D&D, large number of players, 8th to 14th level pre-gens. Yeah, it was pretty raucous, and I want to thank Sir Andrew Scott Perry, for the fun we had doing that over a Zoom. With extra pictures being shown of the creatures and that sort of thing, and robots and whatever we ran into. Lots of fun there. Well, I'll tell you, I think that wraps up. I think, I'll say that I had a good time doing the longer shows. I think the shorter shows, the half-hour shows, are better overall for what I do. They're, as I've always said, I love doing what I'm doing here with this stream since starting it in March, and I want to keep doing it for a long, 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 long time. So I've got to be careful to not turn it into something that becomes more like a job, if that makes any sense. As long as I keep it fun and light and something I can just pop on and do in the morning and then move on for the day. In the past, efforts to do a podcast or a stream or whatnot were curtailed by how much work they were. Not just to do, but the little production things that I would try to throw in. And, of course, the editing afterwards was brutal. And it wound up being, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours to do a given show. Even longer. I'd have to come back sometimes and redo something after I finished it and thought it was in the can, and I'd listen to it. And it's just a re-listening to see how something turned out, to polish it up. Way too much work. Could not spend the kind of time, just didn't have the kind of time. Of course, I was at the game store for some of that, so on top of everything was having a second job. Couldn't be done. So this format, popping on, doing a half hour, getting in, getting out, that works. Live streams, beautiful. I will say thank you to everybody. Audio's good. Oh yeah, did I cut out when I was bemused for a moment? I started thinking, and then my brain started smoking. All right, where are we at? There we are. All right. Well, it's been a good day. I want to thank everybody for popping in today who had a chance to do so. Good wrap-up of GameHole Con. A lot of fun. A lot of thanks to Alex Camber. And also to Royce Thigpen, who helped me get some things squared away early in the process of doing the badge giveaways here and getting on board with that. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, come on back. Check us out tomorrow for cartography and world building with a campaign discussion on Wednesday. GM tips on Thursday. Building adventures on Friday. GM reviews Saturday. Rules retrospective on Sunday. And then back around the horn to weekly news and announcements. Also, if you're catching up with us on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up for any videos you watch if you enjoy them. And also, if you have some constructive criticism and want to give us some feedback, please do make some comments or just give us an attaboy or a pat on the back. Those are always fun. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.